Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the national title. I gave my official pick for that national title. I am going to pick Ohio State to finish it off. I found my way all the way back to the team that I picked in the beginning of the year. I definitely wavered on them a number of times throughout this year, but they're the best team playing football right now, and I think they finish it off with the national title. And a lot of people have to delete a lot of tweets about Ryan Day. But let's get into a little bit of the fallout. Apologies again about the lower third. Forgot to center those. But let's get into a little bit of the fallout of this championship because both these teams have the ability to win, and the aftermath of it would be very, very interesting to watch unfold. We will do the nice side of it. We will do if they win, not if they lose, because I think we all understand what would happen over at Ohio State if they lose. I think we kind of understand what would happen over at Notre Dame if they lose. But at the end of the day, what would happen if they won? What would this look like for both these teams if they find their way to win this national championship and they are standing on top of the sport on Monday night? And I think we'll start with Ohio State. Ryan Day would be a fan favorite for about 9 months. That's the reality of this job. But he would be in a position where you could put him in the same sentence with Jim Tressel, with Urban Meyer, because he is a national title winner. It would obviously be a huge breaking point in his career. It would be a moment where a lot of people would be very mad about the narratives that they tried to push around him. But at the end of the day, a lot of you got kind of a lot of people in general just kind of turn their nose up at the idea of Ryan Day being able to, or being an elite coach in this sport, because Michigan is a problem. There's no doubt about that. That has been a big time issue. That is a huge, huge part of the Ohio State job. But the guy's incredible. He has one of the best, I think the best, winning percentage in head coaches since a long time. I can't exactly remember, but he's absolutely a guy that can win a lot of football games. He's going to turn that corner on Monday. If he wins this national title, that will be the corner turned, and then you're leading him into 2025, and you got to run into Michigan again. That's the reality of this job. Is at some point on Monday night, if Ohio State fan is watching this, they're going to say, let's go. That's so awesome. Love that for Jack Sawyer. Love that for the team. Love that for Ryan Day. But you better beat Michigan next year. That's going to be the reality of this job. That is the reality that Ryan Day knows that this job is about. So he will be a fan favorite. The fans will love him for a time. And then they will get to that Michigan game. They'll start thinking about it again and say, if he doesn't win that one, we're going to be right back mad at them. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But at the very least, Ryan Day will have some time to breathe after this season if he is able to win on Monday. And then there's kind of just a thought that I had. Is this the most memorable season Ohio State's had ever? I'm thinking about, a lot of the different things that they've done in their career, in their history, and won multiple national championships, have had Heisman winners, have had everything in between you could possibly have. But this has been one of the weirdest years of the entire college football history in general, but especially in Ohio State, because you have a 12-team playoff. You think you are an absolute shoe-in. There is absolutely no question that you are getting into that thing. Then you lose to Oregon. You're thinking, okay, we're still probably in pretty good shape. We're still very much in this thing, and probably shouldn't have to worry too much. You beat Penn State. You kind of stabilize yourself a little bit. And then you lose to Michigan, and everything comes crashing to the ground. You're still in the CFP, so you still have a shot for that big-time goal, but you missed out on the Big Ten title. You lost to that team for the fourth year in a row. You had the quarterback. You had the $12 million roster. You had everyone coming back, and you fell on your face a little bit. In late in November, that's how it felt. It felt like Ohio State missed the mark to win a national title. They missed the mark to do the thing that they had set out to do in that year, which was championship or bust. They said it very plainly throughout the spring and throughout the fall camp, and we took their word for it. So there was a moment where it just didn't look like it was happening. It looked like they were on the outside looking in. It looked like Ryan Day could get fired, and then Ohio State could be kind of up in flames going into 2025, trying to figure out what players they have, what coach they want to take over, a million different questions around this team. And then they just became a buzzsaw. They tore through Tennessee. They tore through Oregon. They played a great game against Texas where they made the winning plays, and it's got to be the most confusing thing for Ohio State fans. They've got to have gone through the weirdest range of emotions that you could possibly imagine, but you have a chance to finish it off the right way. So it's a complicated team, no doubt about that, and the legacy of them will be complicated with those Michigan losses, but this final, incredible run. But it's a really weird season. It's one of those seasons where if you thought you had a beat on Ohio State at any moment, they officially made you look stupid the next week. So it's a very confusing team, but they have the chance to finish the job, and that's the other part of this. The job would be accomplished. Now, there's some Ohio State fans that would push back on me on that, because the reality is it wouldn't be the best Ohio State team, or that's definitely an interesting question we can explore next week. But it wouldn't be the best Ohio State season that they have ever had, because the reality is they didn't beat Michigan. They didn't win the Big Ten, and possibly they could win the national title, but to have a really truly successful season, or an all-time season, probably a better way to put it, you got to do all three. That's the plain and simple truth of that job. And now you're in a position where maybe they won't agree with me. Maybe they won't agree that the job is entirely done, but it was a title or bust season, and they won a title. And that was obviously the ultimate goal. It won't be perfect. It'll be a little bit frustrating. It'll be a little bit weird to look back on that Michigan game and just say, how did that happen? How did we let that team beat us? But let's be honest. You beat Michigan, and then you beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Then you're in a weird spot going into the CFP, and then maybe you're not in the best spot that you possibly could be. So it's a very, very weird season. You could very much argue that Michigan loss is a big-time reason that they are here in the first place. So, weird season for Ohio State. It is going to be a very, very hard season for fans to kind of get a beat on and figure out how they feel. But the reality is, if they're national champions, none of that matters. Let's be totally honest. They're going to love this season, but it is going to be a very confusing season at the very least. Moving forward to Notre Dame, it would be a true return to the top. You know, you talk about Notre Dame, they have always been towards the top of this sport. They've always been in the mix for this sport. You know, 2012, they went to the national title and got rolled by Nick Saban in Alabama 42-14. They went to the CFP in 2018 and 2020. They lost by 27 to Clemson. They lost by 17 to Alabama. They got dominated in the postseason, and that was always the story around Notre Dame. Regardless of if it was Brian Kelly or even Marcus Freeman early on in his tenure, it was just they can't do the big thing. They can't beat those big-time teams down there in the SEC, in the Big Ten, and even a Clemson team that had elevated to the top of the sport. They don't have the ability to beat those top-level teams. And then they found their way back. They found their way back to beat a lot of these big-time teams, Penn State, Georgia, and now you're in a position where you beat Ohio State. A lot of things change very quickly. A lot of the talk around what Notre Dame is under Marcus Freeman, a lot of the talk around what Notre Dame is as a program totally changes, and you finally get back fully on the mountaintop, not just close to the mountaintop and then get kicked in the face and fall back down the hill. Now you have a chance to really stand on the mountaintop, and it would be a very, very interesting thing to watch, no doubt about that. And then you might just be looking at a dynasty coming forward. So, could this be the start of the Marcus Freeman dynasty? And there's a lot to kind of unpack here, because it's very hard to win a national title. I've said it probably a million times on here. I don't think anyone's going on a Nick Saban, Bama type run really ever again, if I'm being totally honest. I think NIL, the transfer portal, the world of college football makes that incredibly hard to do. That being said, the recruiting is getting better around Notre Dame. The money stream that they are bringing in from the CFP is downright incredible. They're going to bring in about $40 million from this. For comparison, Ohio State has to bring in only $5 million because they got to split it with everyone else in the Big Ten. So just to give you an idea of how much money stream is coming in comparative to the other teams in there. And then you will have a trophy in that case that doesn't have dust on it. That is a huge, huge recruiting pitch. And the reality is, I'm not saying that Marcus Freeman is going to be at Notre Dame for 20 years and totally tear apart the sport, win 15 championships or anything crazy. What I am saying is Marcus Freeman in this Notre Dame program, as well as just about any other program in the country, is really set up for success in the NIL era and doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. CFB, a philosophy change, is the other thing I want to talk about here, and this is one that will be up for debate. You know, there's a lot of teams that do what they do, and they're not really going to change that. But when you look back at especially the last two, but you could even go back to the UGA teams and kind of apply this to a certain extent as well. They were grind and pound teams. They were run-first teams. They were teams that we're going to run the ball, and then we'll find that one opening on the back end that we need. That's just kind of the way they've gone about business, especially Michigan and Notre Dame the last couple of years. A huge reason that Texas is not in the national championship is because of run blocking. It's because of the ability to have that power run game that these two teams do incredibly, incredibly well. So you're in a position where maybe some other teams will be looking at other places. Maybe some other teams will be saying, maybe we do want to lean more into this ground and pound offense. Maybe we do want to lean into getting more big bodies on the interior and just saying, we're just going to make you quit. That's the reality of the way that we're going to play football going forward, and it's not necessarily a bad way to go about business, obviously. If Notre Dame wins the national title right after Michigan did doing the same exact thing, it would be very, very interesting to watch what people will do. Now, I'm not saying Texas is going to totally flip past and beat Notre Dame in a couple of years, but I do think there will be more of an emphasis on the power run game, and then picking your moments in the pass game will be more prioritized. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. It's definitely something that a lot of these coaches are going to do what they're going to do. They're not necessarily going to change too much, but I do think the emphasis on that power run game will be that much more important going forward, and especially when you see if Notre Dame were to lift a national title, it's hard to say that that's not the way to get there. So definitely something to watch there. A lot of different fallouts from that thing, and Marcus Freeman could get the guy that has Ohio State fans fully on his back, or fully behind him for about 9 months until the next season starts, and then Marcus Freeman could downright take over the sport if he was able to win on Monday. So definitely a lot of things to talk about, and we'll get into that after the championship, obviously. But let's take our last break here, and when we come back, let's do a little bit of a Hot Take Thursday. We'll get into a couple of National Title Edition hot takes, and one I think would just make this game just that little bit of spice that I need in there. But we'll talk about it right after this, so stick with us.